Hello. In this video I'm going to talk to you about my new wildlife garden grand design, and I've designated this whole corner of my garden to be a wildlife zone. I do have the luxury of quite a lot of space here, and you can see how big this space is as I walk around it, but it's not necessary to have a lot of space to encourage wildlife into your garden. All the elements and all the ideas I'm going to include in my garden can be included in any garden in miniature. And I've been inspired to create such a large wildlife zone in my garden by a meeting I had recently with a chap called Ray Jackson, MBE. And Ray has dedicated his whole life to wildlife and indeed received his MBE for services to wildlife and the community of Knutsford. Ray founded a charity called the Lower Mosswood Educational Nature Reserve and Wildlife Hospital. And I will put their details up here above this video and also in the description box below. And if you want to offer that charity some support, I'm also going to include some wildlife related Amazon products, and if you buy any of those products through my links, all the commission I receive will go direct to that charity. So that's one way you can help support Ray and his wonderful wildlife hospital. Getting back to my wildlife garden, I've decided to locate it in the remote corner of the garden, which is furthest away from the house, because this is the area of my garden which will have the least human traffic. It's also furthest away from the lane where people walk their dogs, and it's right next to the neighbouring field. And just on the other side of that field is a canal, so we're already close to lots of wildlife habitats. I also have the benefit of these two mature evergreen hedges which intersect in the corner, and they can provide a wildlife corridor which will allow the wildlife to arrive in safety. These hedges will also provide undergrowth for wildlife to hide and shelter. They'll also provide an environment for birds to nest in and shelter in during the winter. There's already some mature damson trees up here at the back which is in blossom, which is great for pollinators. And down here and over there in the border I already have 4 buddleias, also known as the butterfly bush, which is also great for pollinators. Ray gave me lots of advice on how to create a hedgehog house, and I learned that hedgehogs nest in several different places, so I'm going to have a hedgehog house over there and another one over there. And it's just started to throw it down with rain and hail, but I'm going to soldier on. Another thing I'm going to do in my garden is have a great big wildlife pond just here, probably the biggest pond I've ever built. It's going to go from over here right the way to over here. It's going to have varying depths in it, so I can plant lots of different varieties of plants. And on the periphery of the pond will be, of course, a bog garden. And I want a path going all the way around the outside of my pond, so there will be a path, but because of the path I'm going to put tunnels underneath it so that wildlife can get to the pond. And I'm not going to put fish in that pond. It's not going to be a fish pond because fish can eat the eggs and the spawn of newts and frogs, so I'm going to have no fish in it whatsoever. Any wildlife that arrives in that pond will arrive of its own accord from the surrounding countryside. The soil, the spoil, the earth which I dig out of the hole to create the pond is going to be relocated over there to my right, where I'm going to create a Hügelkultur mound. Now, Hügelkultur is a word that you might have heard because it seems to be on everyone's lips, but it's a technique of gardening that's been carried on for hundreds of years. It's a German word, and I'm going to do a whole video on the subject of Hügelkultur gardening. To my left over here, I've already got a wildlife twig pile, and that will create a whole ecosystem in itself. And here, just beyond that, I will have a wildlife log pile. I've already started that. And again, it's more than just a pile of logs in the corner of your garden. It creates a whole ecosystem, because wildlife gardens are all about biodiversity. Over here in the corner, I'm going to create a little hide, a little summer house almost, that we can sit in and just observe the wildlife that comes to the garden. And I may even build that on a deck or a boardwalk so we can stand above the water and look down into it. And as if by magic, We have a patch of blue sky and the sun's come out. Don't worry, it'll be throwing it down with rain again in a moment. This big pile of soil in the far corner here is already covered in gravel and weed fabric. Gravel and weed fabric is great in any low maintenance area of the garden, but it's not particularly conducive, in my opinion, to wildlife gardens. So I'm going to lift all the gravel up and reuse it. The gravel is going to form the basis of the beach in the wildlife pond. It's important that you have a gradual slope coming out of your wildlife pond, just in case any mammals inadvertently find themselves in the water. They can swim to the edge and clamber up out onto the beach. So I'm going to reuse the gravel and I'm going to lift the weed fabric, and then this whole area, this massive mound of soil, is going to be scattered with thousands of wildflower seeds. This is south-facing, so it'll make a beautiful wildflower meadow, and that will be enjoyed by the pollinators. But it won't only be enjoyed by the pollinators. I will enjoy it myself, because there's going to be a path, possibly stepping stones or a boardwalk, over the Hügelkultur mound and through the centre of the wildflower meadow, so that I can enjoy the blooms and the flowers and the blossoms and the pollinators and share videos of them with you. This big pine tree in the middle is staying. I really like it, and it's our Christmas tree at Christmas time. I'm going to put bat boxes on the back of the garage so that we can encourage some bats into the garden. I'm going to put bird boxes all around the place. I'm going to put some corrugated metal on this mound to encourage basking snakes like the adder and the grass snake. Who knows, we might even get some lizards. And last but not least, somewhere around here, I'm going to put a bug hotel so that the insects can hibernate in the winter time. So there we have it, the grand design for my new wildlife garden in the far corner of my plot. And we finished the day in bright sunlight. The weather today has been quite bizarre. We've had 4 seasons in one day. We've spoken about the wildlife pond, the wildlife log pile, the wildflower garden, the Hügelkultur mounds, the bat boxes, the bird boxes, the butterfly bushes and the bug hotel. Plenty of work for me to be getting on with, but I hope you're as excited about this gardening journey as I am. And if you are, and if you haven't already done so, please do subscribe to my channel, hit the notifications bell and comment below. I love to hear from you. It's nice to know that somebody's watching. What elements would you include in a wildlife garden I haven't included here? Which bits of my design are you most excited about to see? And finally, if you can see it within your heart to have a look at Ray Jackson's fantastic wildlife charity, any support you could give them would be greatly appreciated. And I'll see you soon.